The Doctor Investigates. Season 2, Episode 1. Buck Rogers.
There is, in certain quarters of this universe, a persistent rumor that there are two of him. There are not.
There is one man. There has always been one man. His name is Buck Rogers, and the long quiet between his disappearance and his return changed him in ways that less careful chroniclers have mistaken for the work of a second life. They were wrong. It was the same life. It was simply a life that took the long way home.
Stories get misunderstood when they are told badly. His has been told badly more often than not. People have seen the young man and the older man, the bright one and the worn one, and they have decided, because it was easier than the alternative, that they must be different men. The alternative is that one life can hold both, that a single thread can carry that much weight without snapping. This is a harder thing to accept than two of him, and so two of him is what most observers settled on.
I am not most observers. I have followed his thread. I know where it begins. I know where it goes. I am going to tell you what the other chroniclers got wrong. Not because they were lying, but because they were not looking closely enough to see that the thread never broke. Part 1. The Doctor is in.
I had been watching the station for about a minute before I let the TARDIS land. Calder 46. Lovely name, that doesn't mean anything, which is rather the point. It's the sort of name an institution gives to a thing they have stopped caring about. The station hung in low orbit, above a colony world the Earth Defense Directorate had got bored of around the turn of the century and that nobody had got interested in since. The manifest listed it as a maintenance node. What the manifest left out, manifests usually leave out the interesting bit, I find, was that the only thing the station had been maintaining for the last 11 years was the man inside it. I dropped the TARDIS into the lower bay. She does not make a quiet entrance. Never has. Never will. I have stopped asking her to. He was working on a coupling when I arrived. He heard the wheezing. Of course he did. I watched him hear it. The slight tilt of the head. The spanner pausing for a quarter of a second longer than the work required. He set the spanner down very carefully, the way a man sets a spanner down when he is unsure whether the next thing that happens is going to require him to pick up a different tool entirely. He watched the air do something the air was not supposed to do. He watched the box resolve, and then he picked the spanner back up. He looked at the TARDIS for 4 seconds. 4 seconds, mind you. I have arrived in front of monarchs and gods and small children, and not one of them gave me 4 seconds in a return to their coupling. He had decided somewhere in those 4 seconds that an impossible blue box was not as urgent as a half-fixed fuel line, and that decision told me more about him than the next 90 minutes of conversation did. I stepped out. The bay was beautiful. Properly beautiful. 25th century, late period. The kind of physical maintenance environment you only see when a civilization has been making things long enough to develop layers. And the layers have started to oxidize, and the oxidization has started to develop its own character. The smell. Oh, the smell. Stale ozone and welding flux. You do not get welding flux this far up the timeline anywhere I usually go. It is the smell of a place that has not been swept by anyone with authority in years. Oh, hello, I said to the bay, because the bay deserved a hello. Hello, hello, hello. 25th century, late period, physical maintenance, rust, proper rust, the kind that only happens when you've stopped being interested in surfaces. And what is that smell? Stale ozone and welding flux. You don't get welding flux this far up the timeline anywhere I usually go. This is brilliant. I turned in a slow circle, taking in the riveted hull plating, the patchwork repairs that had been made over patchwork repairs. Then I turned the rest of the way around, and I saw him. I stopped. I do not ordinarily stop. Stopping is for other people, with smaller universes than mine. But I stopped, because I had come here expecting one Buck Rogers. Possibly two, depending on which rumor was true. And the man in front of me was something the rumors had not prepared me for. Which is to say, he was a man. He was wearing heavy, articulated plating. Tactical gear that had no business being on a man fixing a fuel line on a forgotten station. And that he wore anyway, every day. Because 11 years ago he had stopped trusting the difference between a quiet morning and the morning before something went wrong. "Hello, Captain," I said. He did not look up.
You're not from around here.
No, I am very specifically not from around here. I'm the Doctor.
That a name or a title?
Yes. I have been asked that question 1,000 times, in 1,000 languages, by people with one set of ears or 3 sets of eyes or no concept of either, and most of them did not get the joke. He got it. He did not laugh, but he got it. He tightened the coupling. He set the spanner down. He stood up. slower than he used to, but not as slow as he sometimes pretended.
Buck Rogers.
I know.
You said you weren't from around here.
I said it because it was true. Knowing your name is an entirely different filing system. I took a small step closer and pointed at the maintenance bay broadly, as though presenting it for inspection. Do you have somewhere I can sit down? I find I do my best thinking when somebody is being polite to me. He regarded me for a long moment. He had not entertained a visitor in a number of years. He could have counted, if he had been the kind of man who counted that sort of thing. He was not that kind of man, mostly because he was afraid of what the number would turn out to be. I knew that without him having to tell me. You learn to see it when you have walked into enough rooms where one person has been alone for too long.
Galley's 2 levels up. Coffee's bad. Chair's clean.
Brilliant, I said. Brilliant, of course, is my working tool. I have used it on supernovas and very small dogs and small children with cleverness in them, and I meant it then exactly as much as I have ever meant it.
Part 2. A man out of time and patience.
The galley was the kind of small that meant it had been built for 3 and had served one for entirely too long. The lights along one wall flickered at a rate of approximately 1 cycle every 9 seconds, which was a thing he had stopped noticing 7 years ago and which I stopped noticing in the time it took me to sit down. You stop noticing things when you have decided to stop fixing them. It is a survival mechanism. It is also very occasionally an accusation levelled at a self that did not used to leave things broken. I wrapped my hands around the coffee he handed me. He was correct about the coffee. It was not good coffee. But it had been made for me by a man who had not made coffee for another person in 11 years, and the gesture was worth more than the chemistry. There's a rumor about you, I said.
There are several.
There's a specific one that brought me here. I took a careful sip. I masked the face that the coffee earned, because I had been raised better than to comment on coffee made by a man who was doing me a courtesy. The universe is remarkably lazy, you know. It sees a crease in a man and decides it must be a tear. 2 different men. Easier on the filing system than 1 man bent. So a great many people have decided there are 2 of you. The bright one in the white, and the one across the table from me. Different lives. Possibly in the way they tell it. Different photographs of different men. He did not say anything for a moment.
And which one do you think I am?
Oh, that's a silly question. You're both. I'm not interested in which one you are. I'm interested in what happened in between. He looked at me.
What makes you think I'd tell you?
Nothing makes me think you'd tell me, I'm asking. A long pause. He looked at the coffee. He looked at me, at the absurd tweed jacket, the absurd bow tie, the entirely not absurd stillness underneath them. I have learned over the centuries that you cannot make a man speak by asking him. You can only make a man speak by being someone he believes will still be there when he finishes the sentence. Most people are not that. Most people have run out of attention by the 3rd pause. I have a great deal of attention. It is in some ways the only thing I have an unlimited supply of. The others being mostly trouble.
How long do you have?
As long as you do. He started with the parts that were easy. He told me about the Searcher mission, the Deep Space Exploration Commission, the lost human colonies, the long, slow years of looking. I knew most of it, in the way I know most things, which is to say I had read it once, somewhere, in something, and stored it away on the assumption that it would matter eventually. But I listened. I always listen when the telling of a story is the story, and not the facts of it. The facts of it were public record. The telling was not.
We found one colony on a slow drift through the Mitra Reach, Goron's world. 5 generations out from Earth. Their ancestors had landed in a place that wasn't supposed to support life, and had made it support life anyway. By the time we arrived, they had cities, schools, a symphony orchestra. Their kids hadn't heard music written by anyone born on Earth in 300 years, and they didn't need to. They wrote their own. Some of it was good. I brought back recordings. They're in a drawer in this station somewhere. I don't play them anymore.
That sounds beautiful, I said, softly. Because it was, and because recordings of music made by people who no longer existed, sitting unplayed in a drawer for a decade, was the single most painful sentence anyone had said to me in some years.
It was.
A beat. And then?
And then it wasn't.
I waited. He looked at his hands. I watched him do it. They were not the hands he had brought back from 2491. They had become someone else's hands at some point. He had not noticed it happening. He had only noticed eventually that he no longer recognized them. I have made that face myself in my time. I have made it in more than one face, It does not get easier when you have practice. He did not answer for a long time.
Resource extraction. There was a mineral the Directorate needed. Goran's world was incorporated by force. They lost the schools, they lost the orchestra, they lost the children, in the ways that matter. Some of them, in the way that doesn't.
My hands had gone very still around the cup. I felt them do it before I noticed them doing it. I am so sorry.
Yeah.
I asked the question I had not wanted to ask, because asking it was confirming I already knew the answer. What about Colonel Deering? It landed clean. You cannot leave a wound unspoken in a room where the wounded man is the one in charge of the conversation. You have to let him know you have seen it. Otherwise he assumes you have not, and then he stops talking, because he assumes you have not been listening. He looked up.
How'd you know about Wilma?
I told you, I'm the doctor.
Another long pause.
He did not so much settle into the next sentence as wait for it to come around to him. It came around to him slowly, the way things did when they had been carried for a long time.
She was on Goran's world, on the follow-up. They told her it was diplomatic. Stabilization, language assistance, integration support. By the time she understood what the mission actually was, she had already been on the ground for 3 days. She tried to warn the colonists. The Directorate had anticipated that someone might. She did not come back.
Officially?
Officially, she died in a ship malfunction during re-entry. There were honors. There was a service. There is a plaque in the lobby of the Directorate building on Earth with her name on it. I have not been in that building since.
How long ago, Captain?
A long time.
How long is a long time when a man says it the way you just said it? He looked at me.
26 years.
I set the cup down. I felt the weight of 26 years arrive in the room. And I have arrived in a great many rooms in a great many centuries. And a thing I have learnt about weight is that you do not stand under it for someone else. You let them set it down. But you do not get to fail to acknowledge that you saw it land. And you've been on this station for how long?
11 of those years.
Doing what?
Surviving. Trying to remember the Boy Scout who came back from Earth in 2491. Trying not to forget the parts that came back from Goran's world.
He shook his head. Once.
Failing at both, mostly. The first one was the easier man. He didn't know what people were capable of when they had a mineral they needed. The second one knows. The second one cannot unknow it. I have not figured out how to live in the same body as both of them yet, and I have had a number of years to try.
Part 3. The myth of two men out of time.
I was quiet for a while. I did not fidget. I did not pat my pockets for the sonic. I did not interrupt the silence with the kind of careful, sympathetic noise that people make when they have run out of better things to offer. I just sat with what he had said, and I allowed it to be in the room, and I did not pretend that it weighed less than it did. There is a thing I have learned about heavy news. You do not lighten heavy news. You honor heavy news by allowing it to be heavy. After a long minute, I spoke. Captain, I want to tell you something. You may not want to hear it. Are you all right with that?
Go ahead.
You have been told, by every person who has tried to tell your story since, that you are two men. The bright one and the worn one. The hero on the recruiting poster, and the man in the photograph nobody publishes. Well-meaning people, mostly. Lazy chroniclers. Some of them, not lazy, just unwilling to look at what the second man cost. I did not let my eyes leave him. They are wrong. They have been wrong for 26 years. You are not two men. You are one. The thread did not break. It got carried. And the man carrying it is sitting across from me, and he is exhausted, and he is owed an apology by approximately 1,000 people, almost none of whom are going to give it to him. He did not move. You are the same man, Captain, I said. You have always been the same man. The fact that you do not look like the man you used to look like is because you carried Wilma Deering with you out of Goran's world, and you have been carrying her alone, and that is wrong. It is not your wrongness, it is everybody else's. They should have helped you carry her. They didn't. That is on them. It is not, and has never been on you. His jaw worked. Once.
I appreciate the speech, Doctor.
It's not a speech. It's a continuity correction. I correct things. It's nominally what I do. A long silence. The lights flickered. 9 seconds. On cycle. I leaned forward. Very slightly. I have been a great many versions of myself across a great many encounters, and one of the very few constants is that I learnt eventually that you do not lean in at people you mean to help. You lean in at people you mean to help themselves. Captain Rogers, is there anything I can do? I asked it the way I had needed to ask it, not as charity, not as pity, as one displaced soldier asking another, with full understanding of what such a question cost to ask and what such a question cost to answer.
He did not answer immediately.
He looked at the bad coffee. He looked at the welding scar on the back of his hand, from a repair done 5 years ago in a hurry. He looked at the bank of failing lights along the wall that he had not, in 3 months, gotten around to fixing. He looked at me.
I don't know yet, but I'd like to, if you can give me a little time to work out what I'd ask for.
Captain, I have a ship that can be anywhere at any time. Time is the one thing I have in absolute surplus. He almost smiled. It was not a full smile. It did not get all the way there, but it was closer than any expression that had moved across his face in 11 years. And I saw it for what it was, which was the first thaw of a man who had been carrying something cold for too long. I have arrived at a lot of thaws in my time. Most of them did not require a TARDIS. This one did. This one was overdue by about 26 years and 11 months, and I was not going to take credit for the timing. The timing was his.
Then yes, Doctor, there's something you can do.
Brilliant, I said, softly. I'll come back whenever you're ready. You only have to think it at the universe, and the universe will tell me and I will come.
That doesn't actually work like that.
It doesn't. No. But the universe likes the gesture, and so do I. And you'd be surprised how often the gesture is enough. He nodded. I stood up. I extended one hand across the table. He looked at it for a moment, at the long fingers at the absurd cuff, at the offer underneath them, and then he reached out and took it. The handshake lasted about a second longer than handshakes were supposed to last. Neither of us mentioned it. We didn't have to. I left him there. He needed the room to himself, and I had no business hovering over a man who was finally allowed to put a weight down. But there is one thing I absolutely have to do. Maybe not have to. Not in the technical sense, not in the strict accounting clerk sense the cosmos uses when it is being strict with itself. But I have to in the other sense. The one that matters more. I want to see him young. I want to see the man who was at the start of all of it, the one who started the myth, the one who started the legend, the Boy Scout he was trying to remember. I want to see him before the universe began miscopying him. And if I am being honest, which I am trying very hard to be tonight, I want to find the place where his history got mucked up, where the telling went sideways. The thing about a story carried wrong is that there is usually a moment when the carrying broke pattern, and if you can find that moment, sometimes you can make the rest of the carrying lighter. I do not promise this. I have made worse promises before, and not all of them held. But it is worth a look.
And there it is. The man no one has properly looked at in 26 years has been looked at. He has been asked a question that was not asked to extract something from him. He has answered it the way men answer questions they have been carrying alone for a long time. Slowly, and with the suspicion that the asker will lose interest before he is finished. And then with the dawning realization that the asker is not going to lose interest at all. This is what restoration looks like. Not redemption. Buck Rogers was never in need of redemption. He was in need of recognition. The Doctor will help him. I know this because I have been watching the Doctor for longer than the Doctor has been watching himself, and I know what he does when he meets a man who has been carrying a weight no one else can see. He does not lift the weight. That is not within his power, and it would not be within his right even if it were. He helps the man set it down for long enough to rest. Whatever Buck Rogers asks for, he will receive. And the rest of the universe, which has spent 26 years insisting that there were two of him, will go on insisting it. The Accords are clear that I do not correct popular opinion. The Accords are also clear that I am allowed to laugh at it, quietly, where no one can hear me. I am laughing now, just a little.